Okay, I turned on the iron. I have to wet the sponge. It is totally dry. Come on. I don't want to spill it everywhere here. Ah, see, and I'm spilling it everywhere. This is new water. New bottle of water. Okay. So today we're going to do the XLR. I'm sorry, the guitar cable with two 1/4" TRS connectors. These are what brand are these? Amphenol, I believe. Yeah, it's Amphenol cords. The cable is the Redco TGS-HD. It's a really high quality audio coax. So it is a coaxial cable. And so, since I've not used this exact brand of connector nor this wire before, we will be, you'll see what I'm going to try to think out loud and figure out, okay, how do I have to do this? So if we unscrew this, okay, looks like that's a good strain relief. It looks a little small, so this is probably going to be kind of tight. Yeah, but it fits. So slide this on first. Then we have this little clear plastic sleeve, which is another insulator. So we'll slide that onto the cable and get it way up out of the way, so we don't forget that. Now we have, let me see, point. You might want to come in a little closer there with the camera. We got this outside strain relief here. That I'm going to want to squish around the black part of the wire, and the outer black jacket has to end right there. Okay, and then there is a place here for, like, I don't know, sticking the wire down in there and soldering it. I don't. Oh, you can hook around it. Maybe we might use that. What I usually like to do is hook the shield around the back and solder it right there. I still think that's probably that's the way I like to go, because it usually gives a much stronger connection. And then, of course, the tip connects right here. So I'm still going to try to put it along the back, but we'll see if that ends up being a little harder to do or not, because there's going to be a lot of copper with the whole shield. So, but I'm going to give it a go to try to solder it right back here, behind here. Different connectors go different ways, but we'll see. We'll see how this works. Then the other thing is I'm going to want the tip, the end of the wire, to solder right there on top of there. I don't need to go any further, you see, right there. And so, here, a point here. And since I want the strain relief here to grip the outside, sorry, trying to hold this, and I'm going to need to strip the insulation back to right about there, the outside of that strain relief, where it's going to grip the outside of the cable. So what I usually do is I'll come like this and I'll use my fingernail to say, okay, that's about how long I want to strip it back. So then you either use your razor blade or whatever tool you like, and we'll do the outside. Okay, this is not too hard. This one's not too difficult. Oh, I didn't bring my trash can today. I'll collect it. Okay, so this is a braid. So grab the little, so I got my tool here, but otherwise you grab like the little greenie and lay it down, and just, well, with the greenie you're going to probably go this direction, but you see I'm just going to slowly try to grab between the braids and straighten them out. And don't get too greedy. Do one at a time. Go all the way to the end. And then I can fold this way, that way. And you see, voila. Then I'm not going to wrap this up really, here, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, because I want this to be fairly flat back there, not a big round cable. So what I'm going to do is, while this is nice and flat here, I'm going to hold it with my fingers and twist the end together so it holds it all together. So that holds it together, but right here where I was squeezing it, it's nice and flat. You say. Then we take another look here. The black jacket to the outside of that strain relief, and that gives me an idea of where I need to strip the outer one. So the inner insulation. So right about there should do it. This might end up being a tad too long, but it's easy to oh. You know, by the way, you see that it's really thin black like a plastic? Mm-hmm. I believe I'd have to check the specs. That should be a conductive plastic for a good shielding. And then we got this white stuff, which is definitely an insulator here. Okay, this one's a little bit tougher. Come on.
So this is unbalanced?
Yeah. Yeah, this is an unbalanced cable. It's just a coax. You see how the inner conductor's in the middle, and then the shield is around the side. It's all one axle. There's no twisted pairs. There's only one hot, one cold. So this I'm making sure is nice and cleanly twisted, looking good. This I messed up a little bit here, but I twisted this. So now I can tin the wire. Remember, tin everything ahead of time. Try to make this so that the camera can see it the best. Yep, okay, we're good. The soldering iron should be warmed up now. Clean, good cleaning. Make sure I really do a good job with the flux, okay. And then that nice bead of solder. Remember, the bead of solder is important. I'm going to take the bead of solder onto the wire, and then I'm going to add some new solder, which will put some flux on there. Because remember I showed last week it didn't work very well. Give it a second to heat up. Yep, it's heating up. Now I'm going to let the work melt this new solder, and it gets flux on it. The shield, I don't need to tin too much of it, but you do want to hold it together. So I'm going to start in the end. Got a bead of solder, and this is going to suck up more solder. Bead, see, and it's starting to suck up. So now I'm going to move and I keep dabbing as I get closer. Keep dabbing a little fresh solder because that brings the flux in. Make sure I'm looking good there. Looking pretty good. Don't go too close because you don't want to melt the inner conductors, and you want that to be able to be flexible. So we've tinned the wire. We're halfway there. Now I'm going to double check my lengths. Now, you see how I have this off at a right angle? Mm-hmm. That's important because we're going to, oh, well, first of all, take your needle nose pliers, you're on there, and bend this up, and then take these two and bend it up so that it's sitting, instead of sitting there like this, it's sitting there like this. Now I can lay the wire in there, see? So now, see, I have this at a right angle. I'm going to want that right down into that corner. Boom. So this way, when you pull on this wire, you're pulling on the shield, which is the strongest. Now, see, this is a tad long over here. Just a little bit long. It's not horrible. Oops, I just moved it. It's not horrible, but it's a tad long. So now I'll just make a little adjustment here and say, yeah, I want it about that long. And see, so it'll touch that inner contact. So now let's tin this connector and make it ready to solder, because you got to tin both sides. We've tinned the wire, now we got to tin the connector. Okay, here we go. I'm going to do the tip first. I'm going to bead a solder, I'm going to put it underneath it, and I'm going to put the solder on the top. Boom. See, the work melted the solder. The bead of solder helped the heat transfer. And then here, I'm going to turn it around. Because remember, we're going to solder it. I'm going to give it an attempt here to solder it on this side. So now this is, I could try to heat it from the bottom, but it's hard to make good surface contact because it's a little bit of a curve to it. So I'm just going to do it from the top. Add a little bead there. Okay, now I see the work is melting it nicely. Okay. For a split second there, I put another bead right. I actually touched the iron with the solder so that it would give a little bigger bead. I'm not going to push my luck here. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is solder the tip. And the reason why is because we have good control. Because you don't, if we solder this first, you might need, maybe not, because this is pretty open, but you don't want to have to like hold this wire. It's not good. Clean, clean, tin, tin, clean, clean, tin, tin. You constantly clean your iron. So I'm going to solder the tip, and as I do that, I'm going to make sure that this shield is right up against the strain relief and turned into that corner. Okay, so let's do this. Boom, I'm going to solder it actually right on the top. See, boom, and turn it. Oh, well, it went over to the bottom, which is fine. It's probably a little better because it's away from the edge, you know. Now I can turn this, and we can see over here. We can zoom in and you can see how that's well soldered. It's nice and shiny. You see that? Now, whoops, a little tighter. Now you have to have your needle nose pliers, and we're gonna bend this over the back. Okay, first let me make this where I can actually get to it. I stopped there because I was going to show the inner conductor. Okay, so it's up. The wire is up against here. So I'm pulling up, and then I'm going to go over. So I'm pulling up a little bit, not real hard, but a little bit. And see, I'm going to want to turn. Now, the whole connector's wanting to turn because this is really hard. The solder is hardened, you know. But when it softens back up, it's going to easily go right over it. Good bead of solder. You need a pretty big bead of solder. I'm going to hold this near the end, and I'm going to heat up both pieces because they're both big. They take they'll sink a lot of heat. So I'm going to touch both the connector and the cable, and this should just fold right over. And I'm going to touch this side. Whoops! Oh, don't let it slip. Okay, that was way too long. I have too much solder over here. Okay, anyways, you get the idea, I think. Stays hot for a while. But you see, I'll show you how far I went. I didn't have to, you don't have to go all the way around. I just went, so it's touching that whole concave surface, and I don't need to continue. So you see that? That's pretty good. I got a pretty good solder joint. It's not the best work, but see, already you can't move that. It's nice and strong, and I haven't even squished this together yet, and it's not going to put that much stress on the inner conductor. So now we just need to get rid of this extra. Now be real careful because this is going to go boing. So what you do, you hold it where, okay, boink, it hit my finger, and so it doesn't go off and kill somebody across the lab, poke somebody's eye out, as your mom would always say. You're going to poke somebody's eye out.
Luckily, I've got these goggles.
Okay. And then we just squish this down. Go this way in the side, and then back down. You know, so I squish this way and then that way, and eventually we get it nice and on there. Looking pretty good. This might actually work. Oops. And now I'm going to slide this over. Well, that's a good sign. This is going over. It's a little tight, but it went over. Let's see if how this will work. Oh, nice. Ta-da. And it should be nice and strong. Then you're going to do the other end. Now, I'm going to save the other end for the next section, the next class. So I'm just going to show you. Can you grab one of the voltmeters over there, one of those orange ones, if you could be so kind? I forgot to bring one over. Hopefully it's not the one that needs a new battery. I brought some batteries with me tonight. Okay, remember we go to the down to the little speaker symbol, or the Wi-Fi symbol turned sideways, which is the continuity test. So beep beep. And I'm going to check the tip to make sure it's going to go to the tip. Now in this case, I just got to touch the wire itself. Okay, hold the tip. Yeah, you have to be good with multiple fingers. Goes to the tip. Check that it doesn't go to the sleeve. Yep. Oh, well, depends if as long as I hold it in the right place, I'm good. Beeps here, doesn't beep there. Make sure it goes where it's supposed to go and doesn't go where it's not supposed to go. And then if I go to the shield on this side, I got beep, and of course it doesn't go to the tip. And you can always go like this to see if it's shorted. This shouldn't beep. So we go sleeve to sleeve, tip to tip, it beeps, and then make sure that the tip to sleeve does not beep. So once I get the other connector on, this side is good.
All right.
So, questions about that? We're
That's
good?
pretty straightforward, yeah.
This is an easy one. The XLR is easy, and this one's fairly easy. The tricky part is dealing with the braid and then making it kind of flat and folding it over.
Mm-hmm.
It makes a nice strong connection.
Yeah.
The reason why, let me take this apart again. The reason why I don't like, this connector has fair amount of room. The reason why I don't like soldering it down over here is because it gets hot, it melts this insulation, and it's close to this connection. So if this wire ever gets a little bit frayed, or if this backs off a little bit, it's too close to me for shorting. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of times it's not as strong. So that's why I like to try to go over the back. And any taller than this, you're going to have a little bit of trouble. But I made sure I squished the outer, this really good so it's not tall. I squished the strain relief really well. And then I kind of pushed this down, and that usually takes care of it all.
It's remarkably strong, the solder.
Yeah. Oops, gave me a hard time that time. There we go. Okay, this should do it.